What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another one of my creature design videos. We've been popping off here on the channel lately and getting tons of new subscribers, so a big thanks to all of you who have joined the community. I've been trying to really put in the work here and just grind and get content out for y'all. But let's talk about this creature design I'm working on here. So, I posted a little silhouette teaser on my community board here on YouTube to see if anyone would be able to guess that I used a musk ox as the animal reference for this dragon design, and only one person got it. I was actually surprised because I thought there was no way anyone would have been able to figure it out. I wanted to create a dragon that roams about the cold northern territories in the world I've been building, and I have always loved dragons that aren't just your stereotypical scaly reptilian-like designs. At this point, there have been so many renditions of dragons over the years by countless artists that if you want to make yours unique, you got to try to think outside the box. Now, I didn't do any research to find out if anyone has ever posted up a dragon that was designed off of a musk ox, but I'm hoping that this creature here will really stand out from the countless ones we've all seen over the years. It took me a couple renditions to figure out the overall aesthetic here to this beast, but I think it turned out pretty solid in the end. I wanted to make it look like this very ancient animal that's kind of a hermit and rarely seen out in the wild. It's not one of those aggressive dragons that's out there burning down towns and causing mayhem for the various races of my world. Those of you who have been around my channel for a while know me mainly for creature designs that are done in a Monster Hunter style, where I try to match that more grounded aspect, but my world that I'm building here is more fantastical, where things like magic exist. And these dragons are actually a sentient creature, so they can speak in their own ancient tongue that very few are able to understand. The elves are also a very mystical and ancient race of beings, so they're one of the few who can directly communicate with dragons. But of course there's like scholars and others who exist that study the old draconic language. I still have a shit ton of world building to do over time to figure out all the lore here. But back to talking about this dude. This species in particular is called a Boreal Dragon. Their thick, woolly coat enables them to thrive in the cold, harsh environments, and they of course have a blistering cold frost breath that they can use when needed. They're generally peaceful beasts who just want to be left alone. I had considered pushing the design a little more extreme, but I didn't want to lose that muskox inspiration by just throwing in more horns or tusks or making it too over the top. I also feel like most of the ice-based dragons that you see are always just like a white or light blue in coloration, so having this one be primarily shades of those earthy browns was another design detail I really liked about this one. But I did make its wings that frosty bluish white hue just to help push that whole ice dragon concept a little further. And of course I had to give it some sort of armor plating down the spine and extremities to make it look cooler. Let me know in the comments down below what y'all think about this creature here. I don't have much else to rant about, so I'll leave y'all to the rest of the time-lapse drawing and come back to wrap up its completed bestiary entry. So sit back and enjoy that amazing Howling Fjord soundtrack. So here's the completed piece for the Boreal Dragon. And now let's call in the narrator to read its lore entry. These ancient woolly dragons roam the snow-clad mountain ranges in the northernmost regions of the world. A solitary species, the Boreal Dragon is known to only breed once every half-century. This is why very few ever get the chance to witness these magnificent beasts. Only the dwarves, who also make their home in the snowy mountaintops, know how to track these dragons. Their bone-chilling frost breath can freeze over any who dare to confront it. Alrighty, and now let's move on to the next creature design of this video. Alrighty, this creature I'm working on here is a well-known beast from mythology, the Great Basilisk. This is one of those creatures where there's a ton of totally different takes on its design. Some people go the route of it basically just being the same thing as a cockatrice, where it's like this rooster lizard thing, and then you have designs where it's a reptile with 6 legs, and of course there's the giant snake or serpent type design. That's personally always been my favorite take on the creature, just because I think snakes are awesome, and even though I'm not a big Harry Potter fan, the Basilisk from the Chamber of Secrets movie is probably my favorite rendition of all time for the Basilisk. I mean, that thing was just so cool looking. So for my Basilisk, I used a couple different animals as references, as you see here. The anaconda, which has always been my favorite species of snake, and I also used the real-life basilisk lizard, which is sometimes referred to as the Jesus lizard because it can run on the surface of the water. I mainly used the Jesus lizard for the head shape and the sails on its crown and back. And the anaconda came into play more in just the general bulky snake body and the color palette, as you'll soon see here. One of the things that Basilisk is most well known for is that its gaze is able to petrify those who stare into its eyes. And since my world here is fantasy and not completely grounded in reality, this dude here has that ability as well. I like the concept where people would get lost in this dense, murky swamps it inhabits, and because of how thick the fog is, the only thing that would cut through that mist are its piercing yellow eyes. For those of you who have seen my previous creature concept video where I designed a dragon turtle, they inhabit the same area as the Basilisk does here. So the wetlands are a pretty dangerous place to say the least. When comparing this to a lot of my other concepts, this one here was fairly straightforward and pretty easy to knock out. Which is nice because I don't like to spend hours banging my head against the wall trying to come up with creatures. I did that plenty with the last design you'll see in this video. But speaking of snakes, let me know in the comments down below some of your favorite species. Whenever I go to the zoo, one of my favorite things has always been the herpetarium. Snakes just come in so many different varieties, they basically look like fantasy creatures as is. I actually had a little corn snake when I was a kid, but some asshole stole it from the cage because my parents made me keep it in the back patio. Either that or they just lied to me and let it go into the wilderness. We may never know. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the Basilisk. So let's go ahead and read its lore entry here. The giant basilisk is feared by all those who venture through the vast swamplands it calls home. Atop its head lies a crest of sails that bear resemblance to a crown, validating its title as the king of all serpents. Due to their massive size, these snakes move incredibly slow through the dense marshes. Because of this, they rely on the dark, murky waters and thick fog to camouflage themselves while stalking unsuspecting prey. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of these serpents is their petrifying gaze. Just one look into their piercing yellow eyes and it will be the last thing you ever see before being swallowed whole into its gullet. And now we'll move on to the final creature design of this video. Now this beast here isn't based off any mythological creature in particular, but rather just a take on one of my favorite dinosaurs, topped off with a little sprinkle of fantasy aspects to its design. Like I said in my previous video where I showed y'all the Plains Raptor, I just like the idea of dinosaurs roaming about in fantasy worlds. This monstrous dino in particular is what I am calling a Daemotaurus. It inhabits the western badlands and prairies. Think of like an environment that's a mix of places in the western United States, Texas, Utah, Colorado, etc. So that's why I thought it would be cool to combine aspects of the thorny devil and the Gila monster. Obviously, I used the spiky scales aspect from the thorny devil, and the Gila monster aspect comes into play with its coloration patterns and its venomous bite. The Daemotaurus is a very aggressive creature that terrorizes the lands. they're assholes to say the least. I felt like having the super spiky hide and the large horns and all that would really help push that idea. I didn't want anything about this creature's design to give off any sort of friendly vibes. You aren't just gonna walk up and cuddle it, okay? I will say though, drawing and coloring this dino was a pain in the butt, so I really hope y'all like how it turned out. I wasn't sure if the Gila monster patterns would translate well on top of all those little thorny spikes, but after I finished off the highlights and shading, I had a nice sigh of relief that it wasn't too messy looking. This monster design actually took me longer than any of the previous creatures I've done so far on the channel. What you're seeing here was my 4th attempt at coming up with it because I just kept feeling like I couldn't quite nail the look I was going for. But after completing this, I was definitely satisfied with what I came up with. For now at least. One of my biggest inspirations for this dinosaur here actually comes from a very old movie that was one of my favorites from my childhood, The Valley of Guanji. It's a Western fantasy film from 1969. It takes place out in the wild west of Mexico, and there's this hidden valley where prehistoric creatures have survived, and these cowpokes at this rodeo show capture an Allosaurus that they end up naming Guanji. They want to use it for their circus show, and obviously things turn out badly and it escapes and terrorizes the place. It's your typical Ray Harryhausen style film. But just that whole dinosaurs and the Wild West theme was so damn cool to me, and it still is to this day. So that's kind of what planted this seed into my brain here for this design. If you like those classic monster movies, I highly recommend you check it out. But other than that, I don't have too much else to say here about this concept. So I'll just leave you to the rest of the time lapse, and then I'll come back to wrap it all up in the end. See you in a bit. And here we have the completed bestiary entry for the Daemotaurus. So let me go ahead and do the narration here before we completely wrap up the video. Often referred to as the devil of the western badlands, this hellacious creature is not to be trifled with. Highly aggressive in nature, the Daemotaurus has an appetite for any prey it sets its sight on. Its hide is covered in a barrage of thorny scales, and its powerful jaws drip with a deadly venom. A fair warning to all: do not tread in the desert demon's path unless you have a death wish. Alright folks, and that's going to wrap up today's video. Let me know in the comments down below which of these 3 designs happens to be your favorite. And also, if you liked the video, do me a solid and be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And also, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I'm working on building up this community, man, and I need your help. Also, I'm going to be dumping all of these art pieces that I do here on YouTube onto my Instagram down in the bio below, so go ahead and check that out. But that's going to be it for today, folks. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.